They
So
just
could you get into the actual, ambush that happened? Because here's the thing, when people saw what happened to you guys, the public opinion against you guys was this is terrible, and then we saw the pictures of the innocent civilians killed, and the narrative is basically these are contractors, heavily armed, and these are just innocent civilians. How did this go down? Why did all these people die? And that's the question I think that was on everyone's mind when you guys were sentenced.
oh, so you're fast forwarding.
Well,
That
Okay,
was
yeah, let's get. I think we should
what,
if we can get into it for sure.
or at least,
yeah.
but you can start right at hey, what happened? What you woke up? Hey, do the King Arthur Legends of the Sword. What happened? I want to know from the start when you woke up.
Yeah, yeah.
What took
Let's
place,
get
man?
into all of it.
So, January 23rd was a major event,
Yep.
biggest gun battle I'd ever been in. Like I said, there was 1,000 enemy combatants on the ground. The Apaches killed most of them, obviously. I think they stacked up like 536 bodies was the last count.
Wow.
And so forward from that day, and we're just in an onslaught of 2007 is ask anybody that was in Baghdad in 2007. It was literally hell on earth. So we're fighting. Um, in February there was a Central Rail Station incident, and then in May there was another incident, and then also there was two more before the September 16th, the one that we ended up getting in trouble that were significant incidents. So we had a lot of gun battles going on that were not just dudes shot at you a few times. Like, their tactics were evolving and they were getting more and more sophisticated. And so September 16th is the one you're talking about where we got in trouble. And that was basically, um, we were off work. So we had a day where we were primary, we had a day where we were secondary, and then we had a day where we were training or we were off. And then if they needed a taxi ride to the down Route Irish to buy up, we would take them to the airport. But we were on one of the training days. We had the day off. We were in the chow hall and we were eating, and there was an explosion. And it was any station this net. We need all support personnel at this grid. And they were calling for help. And
And
they
they,
said,
and they, Nick, they being that was the team on site, right? That was the PSD team that was given that call, or was the talk that was giving you guys that call?
"That's right. I believe it was the PSD team
Okay.
was, and it was. They said vehicle borne IED attack is what they said. So we're picturing in our minds these guys got hit. Their motorcade got hit by a car bomb, right? So I'm expecting to go have to recover bodies again. And so we roll out checkpoint 12 and we roll into Nisour Square. And as we're rolling in, they tell us to lock down the square, to send traffic through on one side and to stop traffic on the other so that they have a easy route back into the green zone. So we're sitting there, and then all of a sudden the Iraqi cops start shooting, and then it was game on after that. It, it was basically like, I don't know if you've been through that circle a lot, but it
Yeah.
is crowded, right? So it's trying to describe it. It's probably like getting in a gunfight in Super Walmart parking lot, you know, as far as cars and people. And you've got Iraqi police who are in mismatched uniforms shooting at us. And so it's just, and there was such a large presence. I don't know if it was just because of the V bid that had just went off less than a mile away, is why there was such a large presence of Iraqi police, but they were just like not at guard booths, not in bunkers. They were just like randomly throughout the crowd. And as soon as one started shooting, you know how it is over there.
And
They
for
were
those who don't know, I mean, what was the reason they started shooting at you guys?
honestly, I think they panicked. We did an AAR about it, and there was this huge water truck. One side of the circle was under construction because a car bomb had went off in April, and so the tunnel was closed. So used to you could drive under it. So now you've only got like 2 points that you can enter this traffic circle, right? So they had this big city bus, and then they had a water tanker on the other side of the street. So our after actions report was they wanted to kidnap that PSD team because they always see Suburbans rolling in and out. They wanted to block off the street with the water truck, and then they wanted to block off this side of the street with the city bus. And then those guys would have just been trapped in there. And then all they got to do is set their vehicles on there. And then they got a choice, get out of the vehicle or burn alive, right? So
we got there was words and there was scuttlebutt going on that the primary tactical support team, the TST team, had responded, and your team was supposed to sit, and your team leader disobeyed orders and took off anyway. Was there any truth to that? That was from the reports that came out. I've never talked to anybody there that said that, and everybody that I've talked to that has been there, and you're one of them. There's been quite a few that I've been friends with for quite a while, and they're like, well, no, we nobody told us to sit, but nobody told us to go either. And hey, believe me, bro, I get that. I've been told to sit, and we disobey orders and go. But were you guys told, hey, don't go? Talk's calling you saying, hey, you can't go, sit here, stay here, and you guys took off? Or you're like, hey, we need to go now because it's all hands on deck? And hey, it's fucking like we were soldiers, broken arrow. And I've been through that before too, where everybody goes. So what was it like at the beginning when you're just getting jocked up and your TL is putting out information? Were you getting enough information? Were you kind of not getting enough information? You're like, let's just get on site and see what the hell's going on. Or was it just everybody panic and we're taking off? Which that's not a good thing. You don't want to do that either. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think mainly it was the shift lead had tactical command.
Sure.
We get in the vehicles, the TOC doesn't have any say. If your guys are calling, if your guys are calling for help and you go immediately, what are the odds of their survival?
Well, they're a hell of a lot higher. That's why we lost the ambassador and we lost Sean's, because we weren't able to get over there quick enough. And you're right, the shift leader does have tactical control. But I guess when I say the TOC, an RSO, the State Department security officer, was anybody like that telling you guys that, hey, no, you're sitting here and wait until we figure out what's going on, which is normal. That's normal for government shit. Is it right? No, it's not right. But that's government, especially when you get with blue badgers.
We had a shift lead at the time who was a warrior, and he had went whenever any team called for help. And, our awards in BW was, we still got to cover teams. After we get the principal team back to the green zone safe, we still got to go back out and cover teams, right? So we're working all day, whereas that PSD team, they're off work. And so our awards, they'd be cooking a steak and they'd have beer on ice, when we came in. So it was just like, if my buddy is out there calling me on the radio saying, send everyone, and I've got the ability to go,
you're going. I get it. I did too. I completely get it.
I think that's what anything. I think the prosecution and the government tried to use the fact that there might have been some discrepancy on whether or not he went without permission. But, anytime you get in that vehicle and you're the shift lead, you're in control of the team. So I never doubted any calls any of my shift leaders made. I was a DDM. I was a machine gunner. I did pretty much every job you can do, window licker, all that kind of stuff in that tactical support team, except for driver. They always wanted to know where I could shoot. But, I mean, I never doubted any of them. If they said, we're going to fight, so our boys can get off venue, like, roger that, let's go fight.
Well, I guess, and that was my next question, was did the prosecution utilize that to try to say that, hey, they disobeyed orders, we're going to, because it happened to us with the FBI. And it just, I get it. And that's why I just want to make sure it's clear, because I know people out there want to hear it from you. And I get where you're coming from. I get the feeling. I've been there. I get it. I've been a shift leader for Team 4. I've been a detail leader that rode with Big Army when Ambassador Zalmay Khalil's I was there. I was a detail. I get it, man. And you go. And I think that prosecution using that as a tactic to try to get you guys just put it simply, get you guys in trouble. It's a bunch of horse shit. But that's why I wanted to ask you. I wanted to say, did they do that? And if there was a person that talked that did give that call to not go and you guys went, were you wrong? No, fuck. Sorry, YouTube. Sorry about that. YouTube can't cuss. No,
you can, just not excessively.
That's drastic and Ranger not to cuss that excessively. But no, but yeah, F that. I'm going. And what you said is honestly the answer I expected you to say, and that's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing. So you take off and you guys are going there. We leave no man behind. And that's the one thing with Blackwater. We've never left anybody behind, ever. That's never happened. You get there, you get on site. And now when you got on site, did you immediately get in an altercation, or did you get things blocked down? You set up your control points, and then all of a sudden crap happened. And that PSD team, I think people also forget too, what happened to them? Were they not giving you guys calls like, hey, we're clear, let's get because that's what they're supposed to be doing. We're clear, we're out of the kill zone, you guys can come back now. And it never sounded like they gave you the all clear, and that screws you guys up, because now you're just sitting there in no man's land waiting. You basically just put yourself in a kill zone, and you're just waiting to get hit. And that was the part of it. So what happened there with that team? Why didn't they give you the all clear, or did they? And it just got lost in the fog of war.
We told them it was within, most people that testified, and the way I remember it was within 30 seconds of being stopped. Like we had come to a stop.
Gotcha.
And then rounds start coming in, and then more rounds, and then it picks up, and you're like, okay, we're in a real fight here. And then so we advised the PSD team, who another tactical support team had already picked them up, and they were heading to us. Yeah. We advised them, hey, we're in a gunfight. Don't come this way. Yeah, they go a different route back to the green zone, and they get ambushed on their different route back. So they had multiple ambushes set up, because there's only so many ways to get back in the green zone, right?
Yeah.
So ambushes lined up. And that was something that the prosecution didn't like to talk about. Oh, yeah, by the way, they got hit by a different ambush on their way back in, the PSD team.
And Ian, have you ever heard that? I know that because that's what guys like yourself that were there have told me, but I have never seen that in the media. I've never seen that out there. I don't know, Ian, have you ever seen that there was that second ambush after these guys? Because that has never been put out there. If it has, I've never seen it.
Truthfully, it wasn't on my radar enough to say, at the time. It really wasn't. But what I'm wondering is, as you guys are returning fire, do you see everyone, do you see the faces of the people that you're shooting, or is this just, hey, we have to return fire, we're getting hit from every angle?
Well, that's the thing, about being a DDM. You've got a 10 by optic on a very precise weapon, so you know where all your rounds are going, right? And the Iraqi police, they're supposed to be on our side, and when you see them shoulder their weapon and start sending rounds in your direction, you're kind of faced with a dilemma, like, what do you do? They're supposed to be on the same team. And so it was on, and the machine gunners, they did the best they could in an impossible situation. What's crazy about it is I was going to get on every machine gunner's case about how they didn't shoot enough, about how they didn't fire enough, because they were being very selective. And that's why I was so shocked that this was even a big ordeal, because there was one point when we were like leaving the circle, the vehicle that I was in, it got shot up so bad, rounds skipped off the ground and hit the axle and went up through the radiator. And so the coolant is leaking out within 2 minutes of us being at this stationary position. And the medic that's in the vehicle in front of us, he calls out, he's like, hey, y'all are leaking fluid. And we're like, roger that. And then the vehicle cuts off. So we're dead in the water. It won't crank. And so we had to set up a wall of steel, basically where the follow vehicle comes up and blocks, and then the people that are in the vehicle in front of us gets out and hooks up a tow strap and tows us off the scene. And as we're leaving, the follow vehicle rear gunner, he's chunking out every smoke grenade he has, right, to try to just conceal us, because we're going like 5 miles an hour, and rounds are kicking up all around him on the pavement. And he calls out on the radio. He's got enough presence of mind. He calls out on the radio and he's like, "We're taking fire." And then somebody else gets on the radio and they're like, "Well, shoot back." And he goes, "I can't shoot back. I can't see where."
Can't see. Yeah.
He didn't want to just hit people, you know. He wanted to hit people that were actually shooting at us. And you see it all the time in war. The people that lay down, they live. You know, they lay down and they're like, they let you know that they're not a threat, right? The people that are running back and forth and like there's guys shooting this way and we're returning fire that way, what do you think's going to happen? You know, that's war. So I really feel like that anybody that had a problem with what happened that day never had to fight for 3.5 hours to recover their fallen comrades, you know. So it was like this big transition from January 23rd to this day. I'm like, this gunfight lasted 5 minutes. The gunfight I was in on January 23rd lasted 3.5 hours. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
The obvious,
you know it.
you answered it a little bit at the end, but the obvious question people are going to have, which you said at the very beginning when you said they were being very selective with who they returned fire towards, people are just going to ask, then why were so many civilians killed?
well, if you look at their body count, right? You look at their body count. We filed for information whether any of these alleged victims had any ties to terrorism, and there were ties to terrorism, but 3 of them were such high players that they took them off the body count list immediately. At first it was 17 they charged us with, they were wanting to charge us with. Then it dropped to 14 because 3 of them were like, everybody knew they were terrorists. The other 3 that were still on the list, those guys were kind of like lower level players, but they were still bad guys and they knew they were. And so the only bullet or bullet fragment that came out of any body that matched any weapon system, it matched an AK-47. There was a guy running across the road and he got shot in the hip. And he fell down and he tried to say that we did it. And so they took it out at the cache, you know, and took him to the hospital. They cut it out and they kept it. And when the FBI analyzed it, it was an AK-47 bullet. So they gave it back to the guy and he lost it. That's what he said at trial.
And
So
that's that came out during the trial, right? That was evidence at the trial.
The only bullet they recovered out of anybody, bullet, you know. So I really feel like there was an Army gun battle that happened about 30 minutes prior to ours south, and then it's a war zone, right? You got all these bodies coming to the same hospital, and the lead Iraqi investigator who got put in charge of it, he's got ties to JAM. He's like an Iranian terrorist. So my jury can't know that the guy that conducted the investigation is a terrorist.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
and then, you know, our State Department, I'll give them credit because, you know, they were tripping because it was on CNN, like, you know, 45 minutes, 30 minutes later, it was on the TV. They're tripping because, but I was like, you know, look on a map. And they looked on a map and we, you know, members of Raven 2-3 was like, this is where we're getting shot at from. You don't believe us? Go out there. They went out there the very next day, and you know what they found at those exact locations? They found expended shell casings. So they said it's a good shoot. They cleared us, you know, and that wasn't good enough in the political arena. And then the feds come in 3 weeks later.
Yeah, it's
and they adopt a terrorist, an Iraqi colonel that's in charge of that circle. They adopt his investigation as the gospel truth. And if you look at all their statements, all the witness statements, they said every one of our vehicles opened fire, every machine gunner. And that's not true. Like, you can ask anybody that was out there. And I think it's funny, you know, like the body count just kept going up because they ran ads on Iraqi television. If you were hurt, or if you know somebody who was hurt or killed on this day in this circle, come to the green zone and we'll give you money. So
it sounds like the marine water, contaminated water commercials. You see,
It does,
commercials, yeah, but how many were said that were killed? How many were KIA on the Iraqi side? Was it 17? Is that right? Is that what you said?
17 at first, and then they dropped it to 14.
And I just want everybody to know out there, in a gunfight in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya, in Yemen, off the coast of Somalia, in a big gunfight, I hate to tell you this, people, when there's people everywhere running around, that number's not, I'm not trying to downplay human life. Believe me, I'm not. That's not a large number, especially when you got bad guys that are embedding themselves within the populace and using them as cover and trying to shoot you. And I know that might seem, and I don't give a shit if you think I'm a terrible person for saying that. I'm just being honest with you. It's not. If you guys had shot 100 people, dude, way too. Okay, you bloodlust. You kept pulling the trigger, knocked that. Yeah, you're in the fault. But 14 people, and you're getting shot at, and it's in a crowded. And for those that have not been in Nisour Square, yeah, it's a freaking quagmire. It is. It's just people everywhere. You should, and the prosecution, I think, did you wrong. I know they did you wrong at the very. And I said it on the show before. All right, if you're going to do anything to you, okay, then let them go. Just fire them, let them go their jobs, but they don't go to prison. It's war. You don't send people to prison for defending themselves in war. But yeah, if you want to show, let's show some power. Okay, fire them. Then they'll lose their clearances. They go home.